Good morning. I'm Alexander Hertwig. Today I want to introduce our next live coding session. Let's get with something a bit more practical. Today you'll see a video of Maxime Beugnet. Maxime has been working with MongoDB for the past 7 years in the IT industry, for 10 years. He's a MongoDB and Java trainer with the development and DBA MongoDB certifications. Maxime joined MongoDB as a developer advocate 3 years ago to share his experiences with the community. He loves clean code, scuba diving, code challenges, and Vikings. Again, you'll see his live recordings. What are you looking to see at? Today, we're going to build serverless GraphQL API within 25 minutes. Where does it come from? At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, Johns Hopkins University worked on gathering and refining data from multiple sources and provided the world with a GitHub repository of a bunch of CSV files. The problem? It's nearly impossible to build anything from raw data like this. In this live coding session, Mongo developer architect Maxime Beugnet will show you how to build a serverless REST and GraphQL API based on this dataset using Python and the MongoDB data platform. We're going to put a serverless on the MongoDB generous free tier to good use. For this talk, if you have any questions or anything, I'll post the link for the Twitter or the forum. If you want to ask Mars anything, he's not live here, but the questions will be answered later. So for now, enjoy the live coding session and go for it.
Hi everybody, I'm Maxime Beugnet, I'm a developer advocate here at MongoDB based in Paris, and today I want to present you how to build a GraphQL API using MongoDB Realm in about 25 minutes. So the first part of this presentation, I will actually show you how I found the dataset and how I built it. And in the second part of this video, of course, we will jump right in MongoDB Atlas and MongoDB Realm UI, and we will be building this GraphQL API and secure it using the Realm authentication. So let's jump right in. So everybody knows that in 2019, the world was fine, no pandemic, no issues, everything was great. And then there was 2020 and 2021, and we had this pandemic, so yeah, the world was a bit different. So my first instinct so it was back in February 2020, I wanted to make the data about the COVID-19 available to everybody, of course the governments or potentially medical staff to take great decisions and try to eventually solve the issue, or at least trying to help. So my idea was to build some MongoDB charts and make the data available through REST APIs and GraphQL APIs, so it was easy to consume and work with. So I made a few MongoDB charts using that dataset. Looks like this in the end. The link to this dashboard is actually in the very last slide of this presentation. So if you want to access it, it will be available. So first, I needed a data source, right? I needed some data. So of course, I think everybody knows Johns Hopkins University. They produced this dashboard with all the data that you can find about the COVID-19. So of course this is up to date as of today. But as you can see, there is a lot of different points, and especially there are a lot of details in the US. So I thought it was an interesting data set that they were using. And luckily for me, if you look at the bottom in the term of use, there is actually right here a GitHub repository that we can use to build and reuse the data they produce. So at first, at the very beginning, actually, they didn't produce a great data set. So I wanted to build my own version actually of the data, right? I could just gather the data myself from the sources they use and just build my own data set, right? But after a few months, actually, they started to gather more and more data sources from different data sources. So that's what the repository looks like in GitHub. And if you look in the README, there is this list of big data sources, right? So at the beginning it was just a few, but as time goes, more and more countries got affected by the COVID-19, so more and more entities started to produce data, and as you can see, it got completely out of hands. So it was really not my problem anymore, not my idea to try to beat their data set and do something better. They are doing a great job at that. So humbly, I'm reusing the data set. And that's it. I'm just using that data as good as it is or as bad as it is. And so I can do better than what they have, basically. So let's check actually in the repository what they produce. So you have one folder called data. And in that data, there is another folder called daily reports, right? So at first, I thought it was a good idea to use actually that data set because you have a bunch of CSV files, one per day. So I was like, okay, why not? So let's look at the very first day actually of that data set. And the very first day looks like this. So you have a very simple data set, a place, a country, a state or a province. So this was for China. You have a country and then you have a date with the year at the end with a specific format. And looks like you have also confirmed death and recovered cases. So that sounds good. But I can see a few things, like for example, you don't have zeros for the data where there is no values. So why not? If we look at this another file randomly, a bit further in time, like a random one in April, the data looks actually like this. So as you can see, it's a lot different. To be honest, like it's this different. You have like a new column at the beginning, FIPS, which is an ID. You have a new field, admin2, which is quite curious, apparently. You have province, state, and country region again. You have also the date, but it's a new format. The year now is at the beginning. You have also the latitude and longitude, which were not there before, and the longitude also has a weird underscore in the header. So, and also now there are zeros where zeros are supposed to be, right? Where there is actually 0 cases for that particular day. And also a new field like active and combined keys. So as you can see, it's a lot different. So that wasn't very good because it's not consistent. It's not predictable. Apparently the data, the format of the data, the format of the CSV file can change every day. So that wasn't good for me. So yeah, not good. I could not really work with this. So if you want to build a good API, especially if you try to make it public and if people will consume this, it needs to be as consistent as possible. That's really the key to success. So I looked for something else. So if you look in the same data folder, there's actually a second folder called time series. And in this one, we have only 5 files actually. So 3 of them are confirmed global, death global, and recovered global. So basically in this file, you have the countries like France, Canada, US, etc. But they are subdivided in states, but not really more, right? So you have basically a view of the countries, eventually subdivided into states or big areas, but that's it. And they also produce 2 other files called confirmed US and death US. The US are not counting on daily basis, at least not in the time series, the recovered cases. So you have 2 files for the US where you have all the details about the US down to the counties level, right? So you have states subdivided in counties. So you have a lot more values actually in those 2 files specifically for the US. In the global files, the US, it's just one single line, right? That represents the whole country as a whole. So it would be just one big point on my map, but not like all the many details like in Johns Hopkins University map. So let's check out one of those files. They are actually very similar. The 5 files are actually exactly the same. So if you check the first one, like confirm global, it looks like this. It looks a lot smoother. As you can see, you have the province, state, the country, the latitude and longitude, and you have also like one column for each day, right? And of course, zeros or values, for all the fields, for that particular day, for that particular region. So what I wanted to build from this was, all right, so for one line, I have one value. I need to pick the same value for the same place in all the 5 files. and then I can just gather all those values into one single MongoDB document. And so I would have something very neat where I have just one place with one date and all my values, right? That's what I wanted to build for my API. It was something that seemed to be simple to build at the beginning, so I went for this idea. So the problem with this, right, is it just doesn't work out of the box, right? If I just take that file and I just import it using Mongo import, that's what I would end up with, right? So just province state, and then all the key values would be the date because it's in the header, and then the value for the confirmed date, right? For the confirmed cases on that date. So as you can see, that's not very good, and that's really not what I wanted. So I went for something else, right? Especially I wanted some real fields, right? Like the date. I don't want the date to be a field, but I want the date to be an actual ISO date that I can use with MongoDB. And also, for example, the latitude and longitude, it's more common in MongoDB to use GeoJSON points that are easy to reuse than in MongoDB charts, for example, and also for queries in general. So I wanted to transform my dataset and use the data like this. So also, there is a file that is called lookup. It's a lookup table. So in this file, as you can see here, I have more information about the places, right? The different regions or counties eventually for the US. So for example, I have the population. I have also some ISO code, ISO 2, ISO 3, and some UIDs that can help for the join between the two, this file and all the other files. So that's what I wanted to do, right? So join that data with each line and then extract for each file the confirmed deaths and recovered cases for that particular date, and create one MongoDB document with this, and repeat this for all the cells basically in my CSV files. So with some Python magic that I can show you eventually very quickly, it looks like this. So the file is about 500 lines long, and so I won't go, of course, in all the details, but the algorithm is actually pretty simple. So here at the top, as you can see, I'm cleaning the document and extracting everything from the CSVs. Then I'm combining that data with the FIPS file, which is a lookup file I just talked about. And then I generate the MongoDB documents from that data. Then I insert everything into MongoDB using the insert many function. And then I use the aggregation pipeline to calculate a new collection, which is actually built from those. It's I called it country summary, and in this collection, it's actually based on the global one, the global collection. So it's just a summary of the countries, right? So France would not be subdivided into state anymore. It's just regrouped in one single line. And then at the end, I just build a bunch of indexes that would help, of course, for the performances. And then I also calculate using an aggregation pipeline again, the daily fields, right? Because what I have right now in the CSV files are actually just the cumulative values. And I want actually like the daily values also along with the cumulative values for each day. So I have to basically do the value of today minus yesterday, and I have today's value for just that day. And that's basically it, right? So the algorithm is pretty simple. So at the end, I have a final document looks like this. Very simple. At the top, you can see I have a few fields about the place. So here it's France, for example, with all the ISO code, the geolocalization point, the population, etc. So that doesn't change basically for the place. It's always the same. Then I have a date, which is ISO date, of course. And then I have my values, right, that are extracted from each of the CSV files. And that's a much better schema design, right, for my API and for a MongoDB charts, for basically all the things I will be building inside MongoDB. So at the end, it looks like this. So I have my global and my US only collections. The two combined together are the global and US collection. And then there is a countries summary collection, which is just the aggregation basically of the global collection. So the countries are just smooshed together into one single country. So I have for one day, one country, one value. And that's basically it. I also built a metadata with just one single document that helps for the API. So it's easy to basically gather the first date, the last date, and all the countries, for example, that you can query using the API. Cool. So now let's hack. Let's do actually this GraphQL API. So let's jump right into MongoDB Atlas. So this public dataset, actually it's public, right? So this this cluster right here, actually it's available, you can use it. The links are again in the last slide of this presentation. So you can access it and you can consume that dataset that I've built directly without redoing all my stuff and re-executing my Python file, which is also available if you want to do it yourself, of course. So I will be using, of course, the dataset that is in this cluster right here. So for this, I will create a Realm API. I'm just going to click here at the top, and I'm going to create a new API, right? So that's my current application in production. As you can see, it's receiving a few requests per hours, a few also since the beginning of this month. It's been only a few days. So yeah, as you can see, there are a few users active on this. So let's create a new clone of this application. So create a new app. I'm going to call this COVID MongoDB Live 2021. Then I'm going to use the COVID-19 cluster that I just showed you in production. And also I'm going to place this in Ireland, in a local region, single region, just because this cluster actually lives in Ireland. So it makes sense to put the Realm application close to the cluster it's actually using. So let's create this app. Now, great. So I have my application. As you can see here, this is my app ID that I will be using later. And I have a few things to do. So let's first have a look to what's actually MongoDB Realm and what it provides to us. So as you can see here on the left, just with a quick glance, you can see that you have rules and schemas that you can build. There is also users and authentication that is useful for the SDKs. So you have a bunch of SDKs as well. I will show you the list here. So you have a Node.js, a web SDK, Android with Kotlin or Java, iOS with Swift or Objective-C, and also a .NET SDK that is coming soon. So all those SDKs simplify the work, basically to create a new app and work with MongoDB Realm. Of course, you can create a GraphQL API, so I will use this to build a GraphQL API in a minute. You have triggers as well, so you can react to real-time activity on your cluster, like insert or read or update, update operations or delete, these kind of things. Any write operation, basically. Then you have third-party services, so that's pretty cool. So for example, here you can create a REST API using HTTP, or you can connect with AWS services or Twilio, for example. And also you can use hosting if you want to host directly your website with this. And yeah, that's basically it. That's basically what the things you can do with MongoDB Realm. And of course, there is the sync here feature that's useful if you want to sync data across different mobile phones, for example. So that's MongoDB Realm in the flesh. So first, let's try to build a GraphQL API. So if I click here, the first thing it tells me is that I need a JSON schema, right? So I'm going to click here on JSON schema. It's actually going back here in the role and schema area. And like I said, so I will be using this collection right here, global, right? Let's play with this one, for example. So because I want to make this public, I will choose here to use a template. I'm going to use users can read only all the data, right? So they can't write because it's a public API, so people can just read. So let's use this, and I click here on configure collection. Now I can configure a few things. So I could create rules and relationship as well if I had relationship like a join with another collection, for example, but I don't want to do that. I want to create a schema. So I click on schema right here, and then I click here on the right on generate schema. Here I'm going to click on generated schema. It's going to sample 1000 documents, and it's going to try to guess a schema from my documents, right? So it could be good, it could be missing a few fields. So let's have a look. let's put this full screen. Let's zoom a little. So as you can see, I have all my fields, right? Combined name, confirmed, confirmed daily, country, country code, etc., etc. Here you have my lock, my GeoJSON point, population, recovered, and actually I see here that it's missing state, right? It's definitely missing the state. So let's copy paste country, for example, here, which is a string. State is also a string. Just copy paste this and replace with state. And that's it. So I can fix my schema, as you can see, and zoom a little, and I will save it. And that's it. So now I have a schema. So now that my schema is saved, I can go back to GraphQL. And as you can see already, I'm done. If I scroll down here a bit, as you can see, my global endpoint is now available, and I can run a query using GraphQL right here. If I want, I can just delete like a few things, like let's say I don't want ISO codes, and I can run a query. So as you can see, it's just one single document here, because this is a singular form of my collection. It's my singular endpoint. If I add an S here, globals, if I run that again, I have a list now of documents, right? And I can, of course, run queries, right? So I could, for example, here, try to run a query with, so query like this, with subdocument, and it's something like, so country, for example, and I'm French, so I'm going to go in France, right? So something like this. And if I click again, I have the French data, and I could continue to refine that. So for example, I want, so as you can see here, the state, French Guinea, it's French Guinea, right? So if the state is null, actually it's because I have just the mainland, right? France mainland. So I could, for example, do state exists false, right? If I want just the mainland, not the dom-tom. So I could click like this. And as you can see, I have France with a state null, which is the mainland, right? And I could carry on and filter on the date, etc., etc. Right. So also it's documented, of course. So as you can see here, I have my documentation, so globals. And if I can click even more, so I could check even more like all the fields and all the details, right, about my collection. Also, it generated some mutations. So as you can see, I have delete many, insert many, replace, etc., etc. But those are not available right here. If I try to use them on this endpoint, it would not work because I secured my collection actually at the beginning with read only, right, all the data. So let's carry on. So now let's try to use actually this outside of MongoDB realm. So the first thing I have to do is, of course, to deploy this, right? But before I do that, I need to be able to authenticate to MongoDB realm to be able to stand a query. So to do that, I go here to authentication, and I'm going to allow users to log anonymously, right? So I click here, on, click on save, and now I can deploy my application. Click here on the top, and here at the bottom on deploy, and that's ready for me to use. So I will need here to collect my app ID. So I will just click here and I can jump into the shell. So I'm going to copy my app ID right here, and I can now log in with an anonymous user. So for this, I copy paste my user, and I'm using this REST API call with a post. So as you can see, I'm just sending this to get a token. Copy paste this, execute. So it's a big, looks like this. So as you can see, I have an access token, a refresh token, and a user ID, right? So here I'm going to collect the access token, and I have prepared already a query, right? So as you can see here, I have the authentication header. So I just need to copy paste the token right here. And then, so I prepared a small query, which looks like the first one that we did together. So France, state only. Have reduced also the number of the dates, right? So you can see I'm using date greater than and date less than. Date greater than equal, by the way. and also I'm sorting this data in the output, right? So if I copy paste this query now, oh, I forgot to use also, of course, the app ID, because I need to point to my ID. So I need to replace the app ID here in the URI. So I'm pointing to actually this right here on point, right? This is the same on point that's available here, right? So now I can just copy paste my query. Just by the way, the query looks like this, right? So that's the query, easy to read, right? So France, no state, and the date. Let's copy paste and execute. Make this bigger. Right. And as you can see, it works, right? I have my daily cases for my 3 dates in May 2021. So that's it. It works. That's done. It took me only a few minutes, and that was pretty easy to do. Let's go a bit further, actually. So now I just played actually with a small user, right, which is using the anonymous authentication, which isn't very secured, of course. So what I could do is use email password, which is a bit better already. And of course, you could use even better things like Google authentication or Facebook or other things, right? Or even your custom GWT authentication system, if you like. So let's disable this, right? I'm also going to go here in the users, and I'm going to delete my user, just, you know, to be on the safe side, so my token node doesn't work anymore. And I'm going to go back here and enable my authentication provider, right, with email and password. I'm going to set this up quickly, so just use the automatic confirmation, just under something silly like localhost.com, of course, and yeah, just send random thing, no worries, and that's it. I'm just gonna save this, right? Then I will create a new user. So why you can't click? What's happening? Maybe I need to deploy this. It should not be, but let's try again. Yes. Great. So let's use Maxime Beugnet at mongolib.com, create a small password, something super safe, for example, and confirm my password. Great. Click on create. Now I have a user, and I can go back to my code. Now I can authenticate using my email and password. So let's again copy paste my app ID here, and of course type my user and password, which is of course super safe. So if I use this, I'm able to generate a new token using my email and password. I could also run my query, as you can see here at the bottom, using directly the email and the password in the headers, right? I could do that, like it would work. But of course, it's not recommended because not very secured, because you have your password exposed like this. I can actually show you that by copy pasting this and executing right here. Right? As you can see, it works. I have the solution. And here, let's actually generate a token. It's a bit more secure. Oops, invalid user and password. What did I do? Oh, it's not Gmail. That's MongoDB. My bad. Here and here, right? You have again an access token, and just like we did it the first time, you could reuse this to continue and secure your API. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching my presentation. I hope you liked it. Here, finally, you have access to all the content that I provided. So you have access to the GitHub repository with the Python code. You have access to all the blog posts I did around that topic. So how we created the data, the REST API example, the GraphQL API example, and you have also access to the MongoDB charts that I presented in one of the first slides. Also, if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out on the MongoDB community forum, which is right here at community.mongodb.com. And yeah, feel free to reach me as well on Twitter at mbeugnet.com. What am I saying? At mbeugnet in my Twitter account. And thank you very much for joining me today for this conference. I hope you like it, and have a great day. Thank you.